So a key line in this beginning of the letter of St. Paul to the Romans is all that Jesus did through the power of the Holy Spirit is to lead us to this call to be holy. It says, to all the beloved of God in Rome, called to be holy. And that really is the great sum of the Second Vatican Council. And it's something that we maybe take for granted because we've grown up in the midst of the fruit and grace of the Holy Spirit working through this ecumenical council. But it's something to really take to heart, because for many years there was maybe a misconception of the ones who are called to be holy are kind of the elite, the priests, the religious, the kind of professionals. And there was something that crept into the heart of people saying, I'm really just supposed to be passive. The active part of mission, the active part of apostleship is for the pastor. He's supposed to go out there and do his thing. And my job is to just keep the lights on, show up to Mass, and just kind of in a very passive way. And yet, what the Second Vatican Council called everyone, you see it in this letter of St. Paul to the Romans, you've received this grace of apostleship, this grace of calling forth on mission. And it's a mission which is to lead to your holiness. And no one is sort of outside of this mission. If you're baptized, you've entered into this mission. And this is the great call of the Second Vatican Council, of the universal call to holiness. That holiness is a call for every single state of life. Priests are called to be holy. Popes are called to be holy. Religious sisters, monks are called to be holy. But moms and dads are called to be holy. Police officers are called to be holy. Farmers are called to be holy. Teachers are called to be holy. And you don't have to, in a sense, become someone else to sort of be kind of like a monk in order to be holy, but you actually become holy by living out your motherhood, living out that call of loving your students and sharing the gospel with them. And that's what all of us are called to. And this is something that St. John the 23rd, whose feast we celebrate today, is something that he felt in his heart. The Second Vatican Council, it came out of this inspiration of the Holy Spirit working in the heart of this man. His name was Giuseppe Roncalli. And I'm going to just share a little bit of his biography, because we know him as St. John the 23rd, but a little bit about him. He was elected in 1958. So some of you probably remember his election as Pope. And his name was Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli. And he originally, as a priest, served as a military chaplain and a Vatican diplomat in Bulgaria, Turkey, and France. And especially during his time in Turkey and in Bulgaria, he worked a lot with the Orthodox, with the Jewish faith, and with the Muslims, because he was in the midst of their cultures. And he started to discover this deep desire of wanting to reach out, of wanting to share the gospel, but in a way that first walked with someone as a brother. And so part of that call in the Second Vatican Council, in which you see these beautiful ways of reaching out to the different faiths, and you see St. John Paul II taking that up, St. Paul VI taking that up, Pope Benedict and Pope Francis. But it really comes during this time of this man who recognized this common humanity, and seeing how every single person, their heart was built to reach out to God. And so part of sharing the gospel is being able to walk with another person, loving them in the midst of that. And it's only then that a bridge can be made to be able to share the love that God has for them in Jesus Christ. And so it was something really on his heart. And that was one of the reasons why the Second Vatican Council was called, is to say, how do we as the church, the sacrament of salvation, truly, in a sense, not just stay kind of in our own little corner, but really reach out to the whole world, and to be able to say, Jesus Christ loves every single one of you, and he's calling you to discover his beautiful face of the Father. And that was the call of the Second Vatican Council, is to say, where do we find the commonality, the seeds of the Word that are found in all of these different walks of life and different faiths? And it's not a sense of saying, well, it doesn't really matter what you believe, it's all good, but it's that sense of, where can we start with that seed? Instead of warring against each other, saying, where's a place that we can say, we can hold this together, and together we can walk in this little seed, which is still part of the gospel. And then little by little, through that friendship, through that love, through that mercy, through living out the gospel, hearts can be opened to discover the fullness of Jesus Christ. And also, one of the things that he did while being this Vatican diplomat is he was there during the time of the Second World War, and he ministered to war-wounded soldiers. He helped the Jews fleeing the Nazis obtain transit visas. Sometimes we hear maybe a story within the world, a certain narrative, that the church was actually in league with Hitler, and was, there was all these different things like that. And yet when you read the lives of St. John the 23rd, of Pope Paul VI, St. Paul VI, and especially St. Pius XII, who was the Pope at that time, you see how they worked in sort of a hidden way, but they actually saved thousands and thousands of the people of the Jewish faith. And even the Jews at that time called these men light to the nations, righteous Gentiles. And so there's kind of another narrative that sort of comes out that is kind of pitting the church against the people of Israel. But actually, when you hear what they did during this time, there was very radical helping in a very beautiful way. And St. John the 23rd was a part of that. And so one of the things that was on his heart was, in this call of the Second Vatican Council, how do we truly fight against anti-Semitism? How do we truly develop more and more that relationship that we have of being people of Abraham, of the same stock as we are in a sense part of those sons of Jacob, sons of Israel. And so there's a lot of movement there during the Second Vatican Council to fight against anti-Semitism, and to also see how do we, in a sense, discover that commonality that we have, to reach out and to develop a kind of unity there. So then he goes on, and it says that as Pope, he convened the Second Vatican Council on October 11th. It's October 11th, actually, today, 1962. So today, in 1962, to the surprise of pretty much everyone in the church, Pope John the 23rd, he was elderly when he became Pope, and many people were thinking, well, he was just going to be a place filler during that time. And the Holy Spirit just moved in his heart, and he surprised everyone saying, the Holy Spirit is calling us now to a Second Vatican Council, to draw all the church together so that we can truly discover how are we called to go deep into the world to bring the mission of the gospel afresh. And St. John Paul II would call this a new evangelization, of recognizing that there were things that were happening in the world in which the church was kind of just getting put off to the side. And in many ways, some of the members of the church were kind of leading that to say, well, we're just going to kind of be more of just a bastion over here and just say, no, no, no. And it became this greater divide. And so St. John the 23rd said, how do we, in a sense, find that commonality, the seed of the word, in all the aspects of culture so that we can bring the gospel into all of those sectors of life? And the way that we do that is through the people of God who have various gifts, various abilities, various strengths, that are doctors, that are scientists, that are artists, that are all these different persons to say, bring the gospel like leaven in there so that human society can rise with the gift that comes through the gospel. And even though there were many tumultuous times, there's still certain confusion that's out there of the different fruits of the Second Vatican Council that unfortunately happened when people were not necessarily reading what was being written of these documents. Different people were kind of interpreting in their kind of own way, and it talked about like the spirit of the Second Vatican Council, and all these different things happened. But when you read the documents of the Second Vatican Council, they are profound, they are deep. And the one who truly shows us the lens for understanding it is St. John Paul II, who truly is living out what St. John the 23rd called forth. And Pope Benedict XVI continued that. And Pope Francis continued that. And so it's important for us to listen to these popes that came after St. John the 23rd to understand what is this great seed that is blooming, that is blossoming, that's ultimately the call of the whole people of God to grow in holiness together, to be that witness, the positive witness in the world, so that we give the deeper yes to all that is good, true, and beautiful, so that hearts can be open to, in a sense, discover the longing that is in all of our hearts. So that is the great call of the Second Vatican Council. I encourage you to pray about, how am I called to be holy? Where are those areas where maybe I'm taking a back seat? Maybe there's areas in which I've been thinking in myself, well, it's really the kind of the priest or the religious, they're the ones who are supposed to do active mission. But actually the call of the Holy Spirit is every single person here, all those who are watching as well. You are called to an active mission, to share Jesus with those around you, to build up the society through the leaven of the gospel. And the Lord is calling you to that. I just read this one quote from St. John the 23rd to just give you inspiration for the day. It really spoke to me. He says this: consult not your fears, but your hopes and your dreams. Think not about your frustrations, but about your unfulfilled potential. Concern yourself not with what you tried and failed in, but with what it is still possible for you to do. That's that call of the good St. John, the 23rd, saying we might look at all the ways in which we're failing, in which, even as a church, the ways in which we're not doing this right or this right or this right. And yet, what he's reminding us is the Holy Spirit's calling you not to dwell on those things, but to say, where am I called to? Where is, if there's a door that's being closed, and maybe in the coronavirus time, certain doors are being closed, but the Holy Spirit offers another door to be opened. How are we called to go through that, to bring the light of the gospel there?